You wake to the sound of metal dragging across stone. The air is dry but heavy. The holding pen is no bigger than a goat stall. The floor is packed with dirt cracked from heat, but still cool under your back. Your skin sticks to it. Sweat clings to your chest and the inside of your knees. You can't tell what time it is. The light doesn't come from a window. It leaks through a jagged crack in the wall, thin and crooked. It's enough to tell you the sun is up and the day has already turned brutal. Your body hurts. The bruises stretch across your ribs like someone smeared ink across your skin. Your right eye doesn't open all the way. The last blow you remember came from a boot. The rest is blurred noise. Shouting, sand, rope around your wrists. You'd screamed so much your throat went silent. Now it just burns. You try to swallow, but there's nothing left in your mouth. You sit up. The chain on your ankle scrapes the ground. That's the sound that woke you. You look down and see iron biting into skin. The cuff is too tight. Dried blood crusts around the edges. Someone spat on it when they fastened it. Said it wasn't worth wasting oil. You're not alone. You count 6 others in the same pen. All boys, all quiet. 2 are younger than you. Maybe 8, maybe 9. One of them is curled into himself, rocking slowly. You've seen that look before, in goats taken for slaughter. You turn away. You try to remember how you got here. Not the capture. That part is clear. The raid came just before dawn. A scream, a torch, the smell of fire, your mother shouting your name once, then nothing. You ran, but not fast enough. A hand caught your leg. You fell hard. The next thing you saw was the sand under a camel's belly. Someone said your village had already been sold. Every living thing in it now belonged to someone else. You thought they would kill you. That would have made sense. But instead they brought you here. Keep you alive. Fed you just enough. Gave you water that smelled like rust. And then locked you in this stone box. You press your back against the wall and listen. Outside, a man laughs. Not cruelly, not joyfully. Just like it's another day. A donkey brays. Somewhere close, a whip cracks. Then a voice says something in a language you don't understand. It makes the hairs rise on your arms. You don't know what the words mean. But you understand the tone. Something is coming. You still don't know what. But they do. You see it in the way the older boy won't look up. In how no one asks questions. In how no one cries anymore. They've already been broken. You're next. They load you onto a cart with 20 others. You lie packed together like cargo, bare legs tangled, elbows pressed into ribs. No one speaks at first. The desert sun burns high above, and the wood beneath you sears the skin. Each jolt of the wheels sends pain up your spine. Flies land on your mouth. You don't bother brushing them off. By the second day, the whispers start. The boys trade stories. Quiet, uncertain, incomplete. None of you know exactly what's coming, only what you've heard. That the men want you whole for now, but not for long. That they take something from your body. That the ones who survive become something else. One boy says his cousin disappeared 2 years ago and came back with a dead voice. Another says the blood never stops once they cut you. You don't ask questions. You don't want to know. The journey lasts 5 days. At night they chain your ankles and make you sleep on the sand. In the mornings they pour water down your throat and toss stale flatbread at your feet. If you cry, they beat you. If you stay quiet, they still beat you. It's not about behaviour. It's about power. On the 6th day, the caravan turns off the main road and takes a narrow trail that winds through rocks. You see the Nile only once, a distant ribbon of silver. They do not let you drink. The compound outside Cairo is hidden between hills, surrounded by tall mud brick walls. No signs, no markings, just a wooden gate that opens to swallow the caravan whole. Inside, everything is dust and silence. The men here wear red robes. Their heads are shaved. Their hands are always clean. They separate you into groups. They don't say why. You're put into a long stone building that smells of vinegar and ash. The floor is stained in places. You pretend not to notice. At night, you hear sounds, not screams, just whimpers, low and wet like someone trying not to be heard. You see the boys who went in before you come back out. Some are carried. Others walk, but with slow, broken steps. Their eyes are glass, their hands tremble. You try to sleep, but the images stay behind your eyelids. You hold your breath and try to believe you'll be spared, but you know better. When your turn comes, you try to run. You make it 3 steps before someone grabs your arm and throws you to the ground. They don't speak. They just drag you across the dirt by your heels, through a heavy door into a cold room. The walls are bare. There's a fire burning in a clay stove. The air smells like burning cloth and boiled herbs. A man kneels beside a basin. You see tools laid out on a wooden table. Scissors, knives, hooks. You can't breathe. They strip you, hold you down. Someone whispers a prayer. You scream until your voice gives out. Then comes the pain. There's no way to describe it. It's not sharp, it's not sudden. It's like being emptied. A pressure that crushes the soul as much as the body. You don't pass out. You stay awake through all of it. Afterward, they leave you on a straw mat. You can't move. Fever comes the next day. You burn inside your own skin. You drift in and out, half conscious, the smell of blood thick in your nose. Some days you feel cold even when the sun shines directly through the slats. You don't know how long it lasts. 1 week, maybe 2. When you finally stand again, you're not the same. Your voice is thin. Your body is lighter. Something is missing, and not just from the outside. They give you water and rice. They clean your wounds. They say nothing. You survived. That's all that matters now. Not everyone lives. By the end of the 2nd week, 3 boys from your group have died. 1 bled out during the night. Another slipped into fever and never came back. The 3rd simply stopped breathing. They buried him in a ditch behind the compound. No prayers, no name, just a pile of stones to keep the jackals away. You watch their faces fade into the dust. The ones who survive stop speaking. There's no celebration, no relief, just the quiet dread of what comes next. Now, you're a eunuch. They don't use the word, but everyone knows. You're no longer a boy, not quite a man. Something in between, something made. A man in black robes begins visiting the compound. He doesn't beat you. He doesn't smile either. He carries scrolls and speaks slowly, repeating simple words in Turkish. He points at objects, table, fire, foot. He gestures for you to mimic him. You do. The boys who can't learn fast enough get taken away. You don't ask where. They cut your hair short and rub oil into your scalp. They scrape the calluses from your hands and wash your body with salt water. You cry out when the wounds reopen. They ignore it. They're preparing you now, not to heal, but to serve. You're given a linen robe, white, plain, clean. Then you're marched to the river. You see the ship before you reach it, tall, with sails furled and ropes hanging like vines from the mast. The deck smells of tar and wet wood. A narrow plank leads up from the shore. You hesitate. Someone shoves you forward. You board with 20 others. Some walk, some limp. The ship creaks under your weight, though none of you are heavy. You're given no room below deck. You sleep in a corner, curled beside barrels of grain and dried meat. Rats brush past your ankles in the dark. Still in pain, you try to lie flat, but your body won't let you forget. One night, a sailor kneels beside you and whispers, "You're lucky." He says you've been chosen, not for mine, not for the fields, for the palace, for Topkapi. He tells you the Sultan only uses special boys, that you'll live among silk cushions and marble walls, that you'll serve the most powerful man in the world. You close your eyes and pretend that sounds like mercy. The sea journey lasts 2 weeks. The waves make you sick. The food makes you sicker. Salted fish, mostly. The smell stays on your hands no matter how much you scrub. On the 10th night, the stars come out sharp and cold. You sit up and look at them. One of the boys near you starts crying quietly. You don't tell him to stop. He's crying for something that can't be returned. You feel it too. Not pain, not fear, something worse. Absence. The ship docks at Istanbul just before dawn. Fog hangs over the harbour. The call to prayer echoes across the water, soft and low, as if whispered by the city itself. You stand on the deck, wrapped in your linen robe, trying to feel something. Awe, relief, fear. But nothing comes. You're empty now. They march you through narrow streets before the city fully wakes. Cobblestones slick with dew. Vendors setting up stalls. Cats watching from windows. No one looks at you too long. You move like freight. Quiet. Controlled. Faceless. The palace gates rise ahead like the mouth of something ancient. Topkapi. The gate of felicity. You expect guards with swords and harsh orders. What you see instead is silence and symmetry. The stone is white. The arches are perfect. The men at the entrance wear robes finer than anything you've touched. They say nothing. Just open the way. You step inside. The air changes. There are trees here, inside the walls. Cypress and fig. A fountain whispers in the distance. Birds call softly from tiled roofs. Everything is ordered, clean, fragrant. You smell waxed marble, rose water, and something else. Burned incense. Faint but constant. It's beautiful. But beauty doesn't feel safe anymore. They take you through courtyards, each one quieter than the last. Past gardens with hedges trimmed like scripture. Past buildings painted in blue and gold. Servants pass with trays of fruits and silks. They don't glance at you. You don't exist yet. Finally, they stop at a doorway carved with golden script. The inner court. Beyond it lies a corridor, and then another, and then the harem. You've heard the word. You don't know what it means. Only that it holds the sultan's women, and something sacred, something secret. The halls here are different. Tighter, wrapped in shadows and scents. The tiles on the walls shimmer with colour. Reds, greens, deep blues like the sea at night. Light filters through latticed windows. It falls in soft patterns on the floor. You're lined up with the others, back straight, heads down. That's when he enters, the head eunuch. He moves without noise. His robes are black silk edged in white. His skin is dark as ink. His hands folded in front of him. His face holds nothing. Not warmth, not cruelty, just control. He looks at each of you, one by one. Then he speaks. His voice is smooth, not loud, but every syllable lands like a dropped coin. You now belong to the Sultan, he says, more than he belongs to himself. You don't know what that means. But the others nod. So you do too. He turns and walks away. No order, no instruction, just leaves. And somehow, you know, you've already started serving. Your days fall into a rhythm, though it doesn't feel like life. At dawn, you're woken by a quiet knock. No one speaks. You rise, fold your bedding, and wash with cold water poured from a copper basin. Silence is expected. Cleanliness is required. Every fold of your robe must lie flat. Every hair must be in place. A wrinkle, a spot of dirt, a glance held too long. They all carry consequences. You are taught to walk with your hands behind your back. You're taught to bow at precise angles. You're taught how to hold a tray, how to keep your eyes lowered, how to listen without reacting. You're told to forget your past, your name, your pain. These are not useful now. Instead, they give you new lessons. You learn Turkish and then Arabic. You practice greetings in Persian. You memorize titles, ranks, family trees. You recite lines from etiquette scrolls until your throat dries. You study the layout of the harem, the kitchens, the private chambers, the guarded corridors that no man may enter without cause. You're not a man, they remind you. You're allowed, but not welcomed. At first, it feels like floating through dreams. The tiled floors shimmer with polished patterns. The walls are painted with tulips and cypress trees. Silk curtains shift with every breath of air. Candles drip quietly in carved sconces. But beneath the beauty, there's something sharp. You see it in how the women move. Their laughter is soft but never careless. Their greetings are polite but never sincere. Even their compliments are loaded, shaped like knives wrapped in honey. They measure everything, your posture, your tone, your silence. You begin to understand. This is not a place of rest. It's a battlefield dressed in perfume and brocade. The harem houses the Sultan's wives, his favoured concubines, his sisters, his daughters, and their entourages. Every woman has something to lose. Every servant carries someone's secret. Every gesture means something else. A glance can shift power. A rumour can end lives, and you are the hinge between them all. You carry messages sealed with wax and wrapped in silence. You guide visitors through narrow halls lit by oil lamps. You pour wine during private conversations and pretend not to hear. You deliver flowers, letters, veiled threats. You fetch the midwife when the bleeding won't stop. You clean the floor after a miscarriage. You hold back the curtains while one woman begs the Sultan for another night. You see everything. But you must be seen as nothing. You're not allowed friends. You don't speak unless addressed. You eat after everyone else. You sleep in a stone cell beneath the stairs, beside the others like you. Some are older, some are boys still learning. The older ones offer advice. Don't stand too close to the concubines. Don't correct a princess. Don't get caught between rivals. Don't ask questions. Above all, don't draw attention. Because attention is dangerous here. One girl disappeared last month. She insulted the Sultan's favourite in passing. A joke, they said. No one laughed. That night guards came and took her away. She was never seen again. Last week a eunuch was found weeping in the courtyard. He'd failed to deliver a message on time. They tied him to a post and beat him until he couldn't walk. Then they sent him to the kitchens. That's where the slow punishment happens. Heat, steam, blades, endless work. The harem punishes in whispers, and sometimes with screams. One misstep is all it takes, and the floor beneath your feet never stops shifting. He was quiet from the beginning. Not weak, quiet. He listened more than he spoke, watched more than he moved. The others noticed. So did the older eunuchs. He didn't ask questions, but he learned fast. He remembered names, patterns, tempers. He folded his robes better than anyone. He spoke softly and bowed just enough to show obedience without inviting pity. He was from somewhere deep in the south. They said he'd been captured young, maybe 8. He never talked about it. His Turkish was perfect. His Arabic is precise. He had no accent, no past, just silence. By 16, he'd already served in the Sultan's private chamber. Trusted, polished, invisible when needed, present when required. He understood what power looked like before it wore its crown. He saw how decisions weren't made in the divan, but in the corridor after. How concubines shaped state policy with a whisper. How the Grand Vizier relied on second-hand messages passed through servants who remembered every word. He saw how the palace ran not on laws, but on fear, favours, and timing. He learned when to step aside and when to be in the room. By 20, he was managing the junior eunuchs. Not officially, but everyone knew. He settled disputes before they became problems. He moved resources before shortages drew attention. He made himself useful to the women in power, carrying news, arranging visits, covering tracks. People began to owe him. When the old chief black eunuch collapsed in the baths, heart, they said, though poison was whispered, he was appointed within a week. Now he wore the black silk with silver trim. Now he stood beside the Sultan's throne, silent but central. Now he was at the gate. Nothing reached the Sultan without passing through him. Not a letter, not a concubine, not a single word from the outside world. He held the keys to the harem. He decided who entered and who left, who advanced and who disappeared. He became the Sultan's shadow. But he didn't forget the rules. Not the official ones, the real ones. He used his position not to serve, but to control. He kept ledgers no one else saw, a list of debts owed, promises made, secrets traded. He knew who had taken bribes, who had committed adultery, who had a bastard child in hiding. He didn't punish them, not at first. He waited. Everyone who thought they were safe learned they were not. He made alliances with scribes and spies, with tailors and stable boys. He paid in coin when needed, in silence when not. He never shouted. He didn't need to. People began to fear him more than they feared the Sultan. They called him Baba behind his back, not father in affection, but in the way wolves call the moon father. He spoke on behalf of the voiceless, yes, but only when it served him. He orchestrated betrayals like a musician arranging notes. He removed threats before they realized they were dangerous. He promoted rivals to positions where their failure was guaranteed. To the outside world, he was a servant. To the palace, he was the hand that moved every piece on the board. And no one ever dared play against him twice. He no longer walks through the palace like a servant. Now others step aside when they see him coming. Janissaries lower their eyes. Viziers pause their sentences mid-breath. The concubines nod just a fraction deeper. Even the cooks in the royal kitchens adjust their tone when he enters. No one dares speak his name above a whisper. The chief black eunuch is no longer a man. He's a presence. The Sultan trusts him. Some say too much. The Sultan doesn't begin his day without first hearing his voice. A word at the morning meal, a glance before the court convenes, a note passed in the quiet moments before sleep. He speaks rarely in public, but in private he speaks enough. He decides who is allowed in the royal chamber. He controls the pace of whispers, the flow of influence, the rhythm of access. A man who can't see the Sultan can't sway the Sultan. So he lets some in, delays others, blocks a few entirely, and the palace obeys. When someone must die, the Sultan never gives the order out loud. He only asks a question, or wonders aloud whether loyalty still lives in a certain province, or expresses concern about a rising courtier's growing popularity. The eunuch nods quietly, and that is enough. By morning the problem is solved, sometimes with exile, sometimes with poison, sometimes with a rope drawn tight before dawn. The chief black eunuch does not dirty his hands. He does not raise his voice. He signs nothing. He only speaks in questions and smiles in silence. It is more effective than any blade. The court lives in a fog of ceremony, but he sees clearly. He understands that protocol isn't decoration, it's power. The rules about bowing, waiting, kissing the hem of a robe, they shape the palace like mortar between stones. He uses them all. When he wants to punish a vizier, he delays an audience. When he wants to raise a concubine standing, he adjusts her seating at a banquet. A step forward or a step back can shift fortunes overnight. He orchestrates the entire palace like a theatre, and everyone else is trapped inside his script. He eats alone now, not out of pride, out of necessity. There is no one left who doesn't want something from him, and no one left he doesn't watch in return. But in the quiet hours before dawn, when even the guards shift in their sleep, he sometimes stands at the small window in his chamber and looks out over the Bosphorus. The water is black in the dark, still, endless. He remembers the desert. He remembers the holding pen, the cracked dirt, the laughter outside the walls, the pain that split his body in two, the fever that almost took him, the rats on the ship, the words he was forced to forget. He remembers the boy who thought survival was enough, but survival always has a price. Now he wears silk robes, sleeps on feathered cushions, decides life and death with a raised eyebrow. But that boy is still inside him, silent and watching, waiting. Because power doesn't cure the wound, It only hides it better. The palace moves by ritual. Every step, every bow, every breath inside the court is measured. Nothing is spontaneous. Even silence has a shape, and for eunuchs, the shape is submission. You bow lower than anyone else. Not a nod, not a polite incline. You fold from the waist, hands flat at your sides, eyes fixed on the floor. You don't rise until commanded. You speak only when spoken to. You never sit in the presence of a freeborn man. Your name is never used in full. Your body is the message. It says, I am no threat. I am nothing but duty. But that's a lie. Because the rituals aren't just for obedience. They're tools. The deeper you bow, the more the court forgets you're watching. The quieter you are, the more they say in front of you. You're not invisible. You're overlooked. And there's power in that. Still, the humiliation is constant. Every ceremony is designed to remind you of what you're not. You will never marry. You will never have children. You will never inherit land or carry a name forward. You're a servant in the truest sense, body and soul, broken and offered. When the Sultan rises from his throne, you walk behind him barefoot. When a royal woman enters the room, you kneel until she passes. When foreign guests arrive, you serve them sweet wine and sweet words. Though many won't meet your gaze, they say you're pure, safe, incapable of lust or betrayal. But they don't mean it as a compliment. They mean you've been reshaped, and even that reshaping becomes a weapon. In the palace, mutilation isn't a wound, it's a credential. You have no testicles, so you can guard the harem. You can pass through rooms no other man can enter. You can handle the Sultan's food, touch his garments, whisper into his ear without threat of ambition or bloodline. That's the logic they use, but beneath it is fear. Because you've seen what they hide. You've witnessed every deception wrapped in velvet. You've watched lovers conspire, viziers falter, concubines bleed. You know who drinks too much, who spends too much, who fears exile more than death. They fear you because you have no legacy to protect, and that makes you dangerous. They call your condition a sign of trust, proof that your loyalty has been carved into your flesh. But it's also a mark they will never let you forget. A reminder that no matter how powerful you become, you were once dragged into a stone room and made into this. And even now, years later, robes flowing, titles secured, when you bow in the throne room, when your head touches the cold marble, you can still feel the blade, not on your body, but beneath it. He stops sleeping through the night. At first it's nothing, a stir before dawn, a whisper in the hall. But soon sleep becomes a risk. Dreams turn sour. He begins waking with a start, reaching for a dagger he no longer needs to carry. His chamber is silent, but he no longer trusts silence. He doesn't trust anyone. The chief black eunuch once moved through the palace with quiet certainty. Now he walks with his head turned, listening for footsteps behind him. Every gesture from his attendants feels rehearsed. Every nod from his protégés feels heavy with pretense. He begins to suspect rebellion. Not from the viziers or the court, but from his own. He watches the young eunuchs too closely, studies the way they speak to each other, the length of their glances. He punishes minor mistakes with harshness. A spilled drink earns lashes. A delayed message brings demotion. He installs spies in their ranks, boys too afraid to disobey, too eager to rise. He reads their letters when he can, has their sleeping quarters searched, keeps lists of names, times, movements. He finds nothing. But still, he watches. The threat isn't real, but the fear is, and fear needs a shape, so he gives it one. He begins purging those who remind him of the boy he once was, the clever ones, the quiet ones, the ones who see too much. He finds excuses, laziness, disrespect, disobedience. He doesn't explain. He doesn't need to. Some are sent to the kitchens, others disappear entirely. Each removal leaves the palace quieter, but not safer. He paces his rooms in the dark now, staring at the tapestries on the wall. Epic battles, noble victories, all fiction, all clean. He knows what real power looks like, what it costs, what it does to the hands that hold it. He has everything now. The Sultan speaks only through him. The palace bends at his word. Even the viziers defer. But the throne room feels colder, the gold less bright, the echo of his own footsteps louder than it should be. There's no one left who truly knows him. And that, he tells himself, is the price of safety. But deep down he knows better. Power didn't protect him, it just hollowed him out. It starts with a glance that lingers too long, a folded scrap of linen with writing tucked into a shoe, a gesture made twice instead of once. To the palace, it means nothing. To those who know where to look, it's the beginning. The lower eunuchs have no voice, no rank, no rooms with windows. But they move through every part of the harem. They see everything, too much, and eventually they begin to act on it. Not with swords, with silence. They start passing messages to women in danger. A whispered warning before a punishment. A dropped comb that delays a meeting. A misplaced tray that allows a girl to escape unseen. Small things, invisible things. But in the harem, small shifts cause cracks, and cracks spread. One night, a concubine disappears. No one saw her leave. No servant reported it. Her chamber was left undisturbed. Her slippers were still at the edge of the bed. Her jewellery untouched. No note, no farewell. The palace panics. A scandal, however minor, must be contained. An investigation begins. Guards search quarters. Eunuchs are questioned. One is found with a bloodied scrap of fabric. Another is discovered holding a hairpin not assigned to his service group. They are taken, none returned. The punishments are quiet but deliberate. No public displays, just the sound of doors closing behind them and the silence that follows. The others take the warning, but not all stop. One of them, a boy no older than 16, had been keeping a journal. He wasn't important, not skilled, not favoured, but he watched, and he remembered. His Turkish was rough, his handwriting worse, but he wrote anyway, on scraps of cloth, on the backs of used scrolls, on dried leaves pressed between floorboards. He wrote what happened, who did what to whom, which guest demanded what pleasure, which concubine suffered, which names were whispered before punishments. He didn't write for justice, he wrote so it wouldn't be lost. The boy was caught. His journal wasn't. Another eunuch found it, wrapped it in cloth, hide it beneath a loose stone in the baths. Years passed, others added to it, names, dates, rituals, cruelties, a record written not in ink but in fear and memory. They called it the Shadow Ledger. It was never meant to bring down the palace, it was meant to remember. When boys arrived fresh from Cairo, still bruised, still trembling, someone would whisper to them. Someone would pass a folded cloth under the sleeping mat. Someone would say, "You are not the first." And for a moment, they would feel less alone, not safe, but seen. When death comes, it doesn't knock. It slips in, unannounced, during a morning the same as any other. A servant finds him seated in his chamber, head tilted slightly, eyes closed, not sleeping, not praying, just still. The chief black eunuch is dead. No blood, no sign of struggle. The physician says it was the heart. Others say it was the poison he didn't taste, or the weight he carried too long. But no one says it with conviction, because the truth doesn't matter anymore. He is gone, and no one mourns him. The palace responds with protocol. His death is entered into the court ledger. His title is spoken during prayer. A silk banner is raised. The Sultan offers a line of official grief, and then moves on. The viziers exchange glances. The concubines pause only briefly before returning to their games of favour and placement. There is no family to weep at his side, no children to bury him, no lover to whisper his name one last time. Only eunuchs in black robes carry his body to the tomb. His burial is grand. Gold-lined casket, marble slab, immaculate tile work paid for by the state. He's interred beside other high officials, close to power but far from love. The inscription on the stone is long, honorifics, dates, ranks. It speaks of loyalty, service, and duty. But it never says his name. That name was taken from him in a stone room decades ago. What's left is a title. The next morning another boy is promoted, quiet, efficient, obedient. The machine continues. The palace forgets what it wants to forget. His chambers are cleaned out, letters burned, records destroyed. A servant finds an old wooden comb tucked behind a tapestry. He doesn't recognize it, so he tosses it into the fire. The walls remember him. They hold his silence like breath. The tiles in the corridor where he walked each day still reflect candlelight the same way. His shadow lingers not as fear, but as absence. Behind the bathhouse, a younger eunuch lights a lamp and kneels beneath a loose floorboard. He removes a bundle of cloth, worn, fragile. Inside, the journal. He turns the pages, ink faded, some words smudged, others rewritten by different hands. But the stories are there. He adds a line, a date, a title, no name. He replaces the bundle and seals the floor. Somewhere in another wing, a new boy is being washed. His body is still healing. His eyes won't meet anyone's. He flinches at the sound of boots in the corridor. Soon he'll learn the language. Soon he'll wear the robe. Soon he'll bow lower than he ever thought possible. And someday he might rise. But not tonight. Tonight he sleeps alone, just like the man who died for silence.